everybody. I am so excited for our second workshop. We are here to talk about when is the right time to pursue a graduate degree. I mean, you are all professionals in your careers. You are all potentially thinking about it or are already in a graduate degree, or maybe you're considering pursuing an additional graduate degree if you've already got one. This is an extremely pertinent and relevant topic for anybody who's thought about more education. This workshop is for you. I'm really excited for you to experience our guest speaker this evening. It's going to be really insightful, very data-driven. It's going to have a lot of facts and figures that will hopefully help you make the most educated decision about what makes the most sense for you. By the way, my name is Garrett Mintz. I'm the founder of Ambition in Motion. And really, you've already started meeting with your mentor. That is awesome. Hopefully, you've already set up your first meeting. Maybe you've even already set up your second meeting. If that's the case, that's amazing news. But the focus for this workshop is how can you be intentional about really taking steps forward for yourself professionally. Now, I know that these workshops are on a wide array of topics. Obviously, our first workshop was on how to transition into a managerial role. This workshop's about determining whether or not it's worth it to pursue a graduate degree. But I really want to challenge you that when you're in your mentor meetings, that you are customizing it to your experience for what you want to accomplish with your own career. Because I recognize that some of these workshops are more relevant to you than others, and that's, by the way, completely okay. We bring in really amazing world-class guest speakers to come in and be our guests for these workshops, and that's fantastic. And the ideal goal is that all of them are relevant to you, but I recognize that it varies. And some workshops are going to be more relevant to some people than other people. But what I want you to recognize is that even in this workshop, even if you feel like it's not the most relevant to you, that there's a lot of nuggets. There's a lot of topics that we talk about with our guest speaker that I believe can apply to a lot of situations that you may face in your life. So I'm really excited to get started. Now, one thing that I really want to focus in on, and this is something we talked about last time in our workshop, and that is understanding your strategy, your story, and your state. Those are the three keys to being successful in this program. The most important one, that being state. So physically, where are you? What is going on in your world? Are you having a bad day? Are you having a stressful day? Are you having a difficult time with your significant other? Did your dog just die? I don't care what is going on with your world, no matter how stressful, no matter how mad, no matter how angry, no matter how bad, anything is going on in your world, you can change your state in a matter of seconds because your emotions drive your emotions. So what I want you to do right now to get yourself ready for this workshop is I want you to stand up and I want you to shake it out. I want you to shimmy it loose. I want you to scream at the top of your lungs. Just go, yeah! Just let it loose, let it out, let it go. Because what you're doing is you're letting blood flow to your brain. You're releasing endorphins in your brain. You're getting yourself into a state conducive for receiving information. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, when you sit down for too long, you have diminishing returns on your mental investment. Your likelihood of retaining that information is significantly minimized. So I want to challenge you to get up, shake it out, let it loose, get your blood flowing, because when your blood's flowing to your brain, your likelihood of actually remembering this information is significantly higher. Now, when you're going into your mentor relationship, when you're meeting with your mentor, if you can get your blood flowing before those mentor meetings, you're much more likely to retain the information your mentor has to say for you and to you. But if you don't get yourself into a state ready for this mentor relationship, your likelihood of making the most out of that experience diminishes. So I want you to get yourself into a state. Now, the next key is your story. What is the story you tell yourself? Why will you be successful? I'd love to know it. In fact, actually, if you could, post in the comment section, why are you going to be successful? I mean, if in your mind you think, hey, I'm cool with mediocre, I'm cool with just settling, this program is not for you. I can tell you that right now. If you're thinking to yourself, hey, I want to settle, I just want to kind of like not really aspire for too much, you wouldn't be in this mentor program. So what I'm here to tell you is shoot for the stars, have big, crazy, hairy, audacious goals. And by the way, don't let anybody else judge you for your goal because your goals are your own. So what is audacious to you may not be audacious to somebody else, and what is audacious to somebody else may not be audacious to you, but that is okay. It's not for you to judge, it is for you to make strides for yourself, because at the end of the day, this program is about personal growth and confidence, helping you put yourself into the best position for you to succeed. So if you can tell yourself a story for why you will be marginally to exemplary, significantly better than where you're at the beginning of this program, that is awesome, and that is where I want you to go. That's where I want you to be. Now, the last part is your strategy. What is the strategy that you're going to do to start putting yourself in the best position to succeed? Now, this program, this workshop specifically, is about when is the right time to pursue a graduate degree. Now, one thing that I strongly encourage you to do, because here's the thing, at the end of the day, your strategies are all about routines. We think about routines both in the bad sense as well as the good sense. Bad routines are, things that we consider habits, bad habits, they're bad. But we typically have a negative connotation around habits just because of so many bad habits we've heard about. But there's a lot of things and a lot of beneficial things with good habits. So what are things that you can do on a daily, regular basis that helps you prepare for anything that you want to be better at? That is what I want to focus on. So one strategy that you can implement is implementing a SWOT analysis on a monthly basis of your life, of your career, of your higher education experience, of anything. Doing a SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. So if you're currently right now in a job and you're thinking to yourself, I'm contemplating a graduate degree, but I don't really know right now, what you'll want to think about is, what are the strengths of pursuing a graduate degree? What are the weaknesses of pursuing a graduate degree? What are the opportunities of staying in your current role? And what are the threats to leaving your current role for this graduate degree? If you can lay this out for yourself, it will help you on a substantial level towards making the most educated decision for yourself for why you should or should not pursue a graduate degree. Now, our guest speaker this evening is going to talk about the literal specific facts and figures of financially, when does it make sense for you to get a graduate degree, and when does it not make sense for you to get a graduate degree? And so I think you're going to really enjoy what our guest speaker has to say about this, because the insight is unbelievable. I think you're going to really enjoy it. But in terms of the strategies, I want you to do a SWOT analysis to help you prepare for that. The other thing is, I want you to start having more informational interviews beyond just your mentor. I don't care how old you are. I don't care what stage of life you are in. You can have conversations with people. Just because you're not a quote unquote current college student in a collegiate sense, you're still a student of life. You're still a student of professional outcomes. And by being willing to admit that you're still a student, you can take the knowledge of somebody else. You can say, hey, I'm a student. I'm interested in learning more about XYZ field. Would you be willing to have a coffee with me or a conversation with me? That is a great conversation starter for you to learn more about other fields, because at the end of the day, it's not about stagnating. It is about growing. It is about learning. It is about being uncomfortable and being comfortable with being uncomfortable. So those are the key points I really want you to take away from our workshop this evening. I'm so excited to jump into our guest speaker. By the way, if you've not connected with me on LinkedIn yet, please do so. We have a LinkedIn community, a Ambition in Motion group where all of us participate in it. We can post our questions. Our entire community can answer them or see them or relate to them. It's a really cool place to be. If you don't have a LinkedIn, absolutely get a LinkedIn. If you do have a LinkedIn and you have not connected with me, I strongly encourage it. I'm so excited to get started, and I'm so excited for you to experience our guest speaker this evening. Thanks for your time. I'm looking forward to get this guest interview going.
Hey everybody, I'm so excited to dive into another workshop. We're here to talk about how to know when is the right time to pursue additional education. So, I mean, a lot of you, maybe you're a current college student, you're thinking to yourself, I'm already ready to jump right into that MBA or that master's degree in maybe information sciences or any other master, maybe a master's degree in accounting or whatever additional degree you're thinking about pursuing. You might think, oh, I'm going to go bam, right into it. You might also be a professional where you're thinking to yourself, I want to go back and get a degree because I want to get more promotional opportunities. I want to get paid more. I want to do all these things. We've got a great guest with us here today. We got Dan to talk about how we can go about really determining when is the right time to pursue additional education. Dan, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. So Dan, maybe just a little bit of high level, what was your career trajectory like? Why did you determine it was important to pursue additional education? Have you ever been in scenarios where it was on the docket, you were really leaning towards it, and you eventually were dissuaded? Or have you ever had scenarios where maybe you were like, I didn't think I was going to do that, and I did it, and it, totally worked out? Or I just would love to know, what was your trajectory like? How did you get to where you're at? What role did additional education play?
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough that I went into career advisory and they placed me into work during high school. So going straight into Compact, which is no longer here, but into IT from high school was just a fantastic opportunity. I never thought I could afford college. College just didn't make sense. It was for people that already had money or for, a job that I probably wasn't going to get anyways. And that was kind of that mentality that I had. And when I got more and more invested into my career journey, I ran into specific walls where you couldn't apply for this job as a manager unless you had a bachelor's degree. And then there was certain criteria. You need to have business or you need to have this or that, that they honored in order to be this manager. It didn't matter how many years of experience or this or that. So there was these hard walls that you kind of run into. But honestly, the best pursuant of education is when the company is also investing in you as well. So go to the table and go, whether it's 100-0 or a 60-40, or I work multiple years to help pay it off. I think those are the best combinations where you say, you invest in me and I'm going to bring returns for the company uh, while I educate myself, right? And there's good justifications for that. Should always be educating yourself, though. But specifically for higher education, for those degrees, make those values stick. Where does that create value, right? Are we willing to change the system because this corporation, organization needs to adapt faster, more efficient, know things they don't know today, right? Business leaders always need new perspective. The market changes, politics change, all sorts of elements, right? So you have to have this embracing curiosity and constant learning, right? But first, you have to invest in yourself. You have to reflect, embrace that mindset of learning different, of thinking things different, to have a different set of tools so that you can adapt it, because it's reimagining the work. It's the same work. You build a product, get a customer, you move the product, there's profit involved. So these basic principles, but it's reimagining the work that has that exponential value of why some companies doing the same thing as another will suddenly be worth more. And it's that driving that change, adoption, but always being able to be curious and how you can create value in different ways. But first and always, invest in yourself.
No, I love that. I think that's really great. And I think that, there needs to be, a framework around that. I mean, how do we avoid a flash in the pan kind of exciting concept versus something that's got staying power? I'll give an example. I think, how hilariously, well, it almost seems like a skit from like a comedy bit where it's like you go back to 2019 or 2020. I can't remember when Facebook changed its name to Meta. And I would imagine there's a lot of universities in software or computer science programs that were like, get a 2-year master's degree in the metaverse. You'll be able to develop software for the metaverse and it'll be the next big thing. And you come out of that master's program 2 years later and you're like, cool, metaverse jobs, where are we at? And they're like, yeah, it's not the big thing anymore. You got to get into AI. So like, how do you determine when something's a worthwhile investment of your time versus something that is a flash in the pan and may not have the staying power?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is you never know, which isn't a good answer. But you need to have a bit of a portfolio. So challenge your psychology from different mindsets. And there's different ways you can do that, whether leadership, whether you're looking at various books, and either some of the mastermind groups, things where you're going to listen to other people and how they think, understanding how you think, target marketing to marketing. It applies in every situation, is understanding people, how they think, and how to build relationships. And there's all sorts of elements in that space. Another space is the technical aspect of it. It doesn't have to necessarily be a nerd, but some sort of hard skill, right? Whether it's tinkering with electronics or you're woodworking or just simply doing something that you're going to build concepts on top of each other. Whether you do pottery, it doesn't matter. What matters is the ability to have a physical correlation with something tangible that you're doing so that you can apply that learning in various situations. So you need connectability.
Yeah, can I ask a question on that? Because this concept of connecting things that you're already genuinely interested in or things that you've already done, I think makes a ton of sense. But I see a lot of college students going to college. We're right at 18. And one thing you identified in your story, which I find fascinating, is that you didn't go to college right away. You thought you couldn't afford it. You were able to get into IT, but then eventually hit a wall where they were like, cool, Dan, you're a great employee. You do great work. We really like you. Culturally, you're a fit here, but I can't promote you to manager unless you get a degree. So, how did you broach that conversation to your company? Did they pay for it? Was it a split? Like, how did you get to that point where they were going to do that? And also, I would imagine for you, you'd have a lot of conviction to get that degree. I think like when you're in the 18 to 22-year-old mode, sometimes it can be hard to have that conviction to get that degree, because technically, even if you're doing something that seems relatively straightforward, let's say you're getting a degree in marketing, like marketing can still be a wide array of things. And you might not even get into a marketing role. You might even totally switch industries.
Sure. Absolutely. No, I was fortunate enough to be able to have the conversations with leadership and go, how much would you be willing to give? And at first they say, 1,000 a year or 2,000 a year, and that's really not very much, and that's going to take you a very long time. And you say, what about if this? What if you paid $10,000, right? I get all A's, and I continue to work and make a commitment of 2 years. If I leave inside of 2 years, then as a percentage, there's a payback, something along those lines. So you build something so they know it's not a flash in the pan, that it's a long-term investment. And then on the other side of the challenge of it is you have to offer like, hey, I'm going to bring projects or initiatives, or I want to do something with this learning that's going to bring value. Part of an innovation team, or maybe you're just helping out in different areas. But if you just have the commitment and there's a value proposition with a little bit of a timeline, I think you're going to beat out most of the competition of what most people are offering. And that was my experience in that space of really getting companies to pay for pretty much all of my education over the years.
I love that. Let me take a moment to ask the students a question. Post in the comments, how do you plan to advocate for your own education to your employer? Post in the comments. I'd love to learn more. So Dan, you brought up this really great point of being willing to push back. I would imagine you probably were nervous to have that conversation. I would imagine if let's say if I'm a company and I've not historically paid for the education of my people, but I got someone who I'm like, you know what, I'd be willing to pay for that. What was education back in my day? In the 60s when I went to school, getting an education was only $1,000 a year. I'll contribute $1,000. You're like, come on now. Inflation, just the cost of education has gone up incrementally. And just because back in the 60s or 70s or whenever they went to school, it was so cheap and cost effective, is not the case now. And so how did you feel emboldened to push back and say, hey, I'm looking at more like 10K a year, but I'll do this. I'll stay with you for at least 2 years after I complete my degree. I will take lead on a technology innovation, or in your case, technology innovation. If you're getting your master's in HR or MBA or whatever area you're getting your master's degree in or any additional education in, say, I will lead an initiative within this space at the organization based on my learnings in school.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
I mean, for me and my story, the first one was, my boss said no. The director of HR said no. The CFO said no. Then I went and asked one of the gentlemen, the founder whose name was on the sign of the building. And I said, what was his story? And he said, well, he got fired. Then he got with some venture capitalists, bought enough shares, came back to the company, bought enough to establish himself as a player with yearly commits, which he provided. Then he constantly bought and sold the company to make a fortune. I said, now, doesn't that strategy apply? Wouldn't you apply that as strategy to other people that work for you? Right? So you use their own story of how they use venture capitalists, how they use credit lines in order to get money in order for them to get deliverables. Why not use the resources they have inside their own house to invest in their own people to then yield those same results? So by able to draw those parallels, then you're like, hey, isn't that exactly the same thing you just did? You put money into a bad investment called yourself, right? With bankers, but it paid off and you delivered, right? So, let me be that high interest, that yield for you, that risk. But the difference is I already work for you. So I'm kind of committed into the job. So it's kind of a double decker if I don't deliver, right? So it's even more pressure on me, lower risk for you. And, you look at, instead of getting a raise and then paying that money, a lot of it they can write off from a tax benefit and various other elements, right, as being professional development. So it's kind of a win-win as you set yourself up. Plus, the bigger thing is they're investing in you. It's not just money. Now it's a different kind of relationship. When the opportunity comes up, they're already investing the time and the money into you. So even if you didn't finish the degree, they're kind of pot committed with you in a lot of ways.
That's so interesting because what a great testament to taking a no and not letting that be the final answer. Like you were a trailblazer. I would imagine when that first went through, like HR was probably pissed at you. They were like, I already told them no. And they're like, well, the CEO and co-founder decided to green light it. And so then that person was like, well, shoot, could this apply to other things like, maternity benefits or, other educational leaves and professional development opportunities? And like, you probably were a paver of roads for so many people. But it's your persistence that paid off. And I love that part of your story. That's really cool and really, really fascinating.
I appreciate it. I mean, it's a tough line, right? But the worst case is they pay for your education, you don't do well, and it's the same as if you didn't try. So,
sure.
Well,
what about these students? Perhaps maybe their employer has said no. Maybe there just isn't a case there. Maybe the employer's like, you're doing a good job. We like you in your role. I don't need to give you a promotion. Like maybe you're just in an industry that's contracting, or maybe just not actively growing. So the opportunities really aren't there. And there's just a lot of tenured people in front of you in the pecking order. And they're like, don't get me wrong. We like the idea of educating you, but the role you're looking for with this education is up here. And we've got 4 people between you and them in this role. And we just, it's hard for us to see that outcome. Like, do you ever consider just going out on your own and saying, screw it, I'm going to get this education? If so, like, what's your decision-making model and framework for this type of a decision?
Yeah, and I think you should do both, right? Because there's going to be topics that you're either passionate about or aren't necessarily going to be one-to-one to correlating value for an organization, right? Me learning Python skills, right? Because I learned C coding. I never really learned Python. At this level, I probably couldn't correlate that to my job, right? But it's something I want to learn because now that I'm doing more AI and Microsoft's making the commitment, I need to retone up my skills a little bit. So I think there's also elements of like where you want to have professional development, but it doesn't necessarily want to be associated with the company that you're currently at. You want it to be have that space where you can kind of say and be a part of it in more of a free range reflection kind of space, right? Maybe you want to be more vulnerable, or maybe you want to go after a new market, new space, and you don't feel comfortable saying that at work. Like you want to do a different industry or something completely different. So I think you should always have that push for curiosity. Curiosity and learning is such a huge value. That's what's going to be different between people and AI, is that curiosity element. The other thing I would say is I've yet to see too many companies that don't have an Accenture or some partner that they're using on the top level advisory service to C-suite and executive leadership to tell them about what's happening in the market, how they should have a more humility hierarchy versus a hierarchy structure so that they can have more innovation, so that they can have more speculative value, turn more efficiencies, effective products, or bring in more AI or whatever. So if you use that same principle and you say, right now you're paying this company to give you all of these services, these consulting hours, right? Really what you're looking for is somebody with inside knowledge of what this company does, or the values, the secret sauce, or how you're actually making money correlate to something cool and new. So why don't you have that curiosity of learning inside your house, bringing the innovative ideas, and then tie it to these strategic places you want to go, right? And then you can really elevate where the conversation is. So some people say, theoretically, we want this company to be in this new product segment and deliver more product. Why not have somebody that goes, well, this is how this company works, I'm a part of it, and that curiosity to start building that bridge. So that's why most of those fail, is they don't really have any tangible connections into how the company actually operates versus the vision to execution space, right?
Well, I think there's a third layer to that, is that maybe there is connections there, but more likely than not, you have not effectively communicated that to your team, boss, or organization. Or you took the first no and said, screw it, I gotta know. So therefore it's no all around for everybody involved. And in life, it takes a bit more persistent than that. Like at the end of the day, like just because one person said no doesn't mean it's not no forever. And, if you could be the trailblazer that opens up opportunities and doors for future people, that's an enormous thing. But, I guess what did getting additional education do for you in terms of your career growth? Like, was there ever a time that you determined it just didn't do much for you? And was there ever a time that it really amplified your career growth?
Yeah, I had a friend and coach. He had some great advice. He says the problem with any sort of education is that you don't digest it in the moment. It's usually 2 years later that you can actually digest what was said, what you learned, and then you can appropriately apply it in the situation. So it is a longer play. The value is that you think different, is the fact that you can look from different perspectives. You can understand a diversity of thought and go, I could see why you would say that. I could see why this other person has that perspective or this perception of combination of diverse thoughts, right? The more you can open up the curiosity and challenge your own understanding, the more you're capable of things, right? And I think that's opening up your capabilities a lot more. And that's what education really does, is it empowers people. Without education, you would be born into whatever family trade you do, and you would do a fantastic job, but you would never have those other opportunities because you just wouldn't have that curiosity of thought. And so I know that's a little bit less tangible, but it's a combination of ambition and willingness to grow and change. And you won't be something different unless you give yourself that opportunity. So me wanting to be a manager of IT was because I wanted more money and I wanted to be in charge. But then you realized the difference of the challenges, right? It wouldn't make me any better at my trade. It would just make me have to learn what's valuable to other people and why I had to change how I worked for the betterment of the company. And so it actually kind of flipped the script on what I valued, right? I valued high quality work in a silo, but in actuality, it's understanding outside of that silo as to why that needs to be more adapted than it is to be, one perfect piece of cube, right? And so I think it's a long play, and that's unfortunately why it's such a difficult investment.
Yeah, no, and I mean, obviously, with the cost of it, it's something that you're going to be paying back, over time. I've heard kind of like a rule of thumb of, what your total cost of college should be roughly equivalent to like the annual salary that you'll have after you get out of college, and split that up. It was anecdotal. I forgot who I interviewed about this, but it was a few years ago. But it was something along the lines of like whatever your annual salary is, like that should be the max number for what your total educational cost should.
And there's a lot more opportunities now because you can go to a school that's going to have a lot of connections, like an Ivy League school, that's going to position you with a lot of similar type players. You can go to a school that's remote learn and do competency based and check some boxes. And you can take courses for very low cost that are very impactful in how you think and how you look at things. So, don't be afraid to play with the portfolio a little bit. Like Ivy League school is good. Another school that's going to give that connectability is good. And then there's just the learning aspect of where you come in different. I think is another.
Let me ask the students a question real quick. I mean, because they're all college students. Post in the comment section. How did you determine what school you went to? What was your thought process around that? And how might you change that thought process if you were to pursue an additional degree, whether it be a master's or another bachelor's or a PhD or whatever it may be? Post in the comment section. How did you determine your college education and your school? And how would you change your mindset around what school you would choose if you were to get more education? Speaking of which, Dan, how did you determine your education? Like, what school did you choose? Why'd you choose that school?
Yeah, I choose cheap and available community college. Then I said, well, I wanted to have a bachelor's degree in business, so I need to get a more notable school. It was taking too long, so then I went to competency to just get the bachelor's done and check the box. When I came into the master's, I realized that for a lot of conversations and building those connections, you needed to have a school that people would know as a name. It needed to be more notable. So I looked at that top 20, that top 50 list, and you go, which degree aligns with my career? Which one has the name that's going to make sense with that degree? So it starts to build that story of tenured years, what kind of group you're going to connect with, right? So if you're going to do a Penn State, maybe you're going to do more financial, Purdue with more chemical or biological, right? So there's different schools that have those kind of noted uh, personas with it. And so when you get into those spaces, then you want to be able to have that conversation very quickly about who you are and what you're about to get those circle connections.
I think that's a really good point you bring up. I think it's easy to overlook the prestige of the degree. I think I see a lot of people, getting degrees where, like, from a competency standpoint, you have the degree 100%, no questions asked. But maybe it lacks that prestige that you would like to see on your resume. And I'm glad that you're calling that out, because I do think it's probably important for students to consider. It's like, cool, if you've got a pretty prestigious university and degree on your resume, that will go, for better or for worse, a long way in the minds of other people.
Yeah, and unfortunately, when you do a job application, if that school's not in the list, you have to type it in. So is that positive or negative? So even those kind of aspects of, like, if it's one that people are immediately going to call to, that's worth some weight to it. Not saying you have to start there. You could end there and still get the name on something. But it does carry a certain amount of weight in various circles because it builds those relationships. No different than, like, if you golf or tennis, or you do football, anything where you can kind of have that connectability with other people in what their experiences are. That, I think, is worth some weight.
How do you plan on using your degree to continue and advance your career?
I would say that it's a good leadership moment for people that are reporting to you to also invest in themselves and not kind of get into that mode where they want to have that yearly incremental raise, or they think just because of the price of things going up that they should also get a raise. And they kind of fall victim of going with the water versus setting themselves apart. How are they investing in themselves? Because the more they invest in themselves, the better they're going to do for the team too, because they're going to push the organization in different ways. They're going to connect, and they're going to make things better and more powerful for the team. So you want to have that little bit of a rub, but that engine to keep inside of them running. So, some of it is going to be, don't forget to invest in yourself always, because I'm always going to invest in myself. That said, what school I went to, what I've accomplished, those are things that you put on shelves, which is great. You'll leverage that for future opportunities, but I'm not really ready to just sit and look at shelves of accomplishments. That's
No, I
not
like that. That's cool. And what I really like just most about this sentiment and this thought process is really just along the lines of constantly having a curious mentality, a curiosity mindset when it comes to the workplace, because so often people just get stuck in the status quo. They get stuck in I got this house, I got this car, I got these kids, I've got these lifestyle things. I'm just going to kind of cruise and coast and just kind of like let this one play out. My other things are taking up my time and blah, 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 blah. And then, unfortunately, one day the organization decides they're going to do a reduction in force, and you get, a pink slip because you're told that AI's replaced your job. I'm not saying that's what actually happens, but unfortunately that happens to a lot of people. And then you're like, oh crap, like now what do I do? But I haven't been educating myself. I haven't been in a constant learning mode. Even with the students, we talk about networking in a genuine way. We talk about all these different things. Like the worst time to go out and ask for guidance and help is when you really are desperate for it.
Yeah.
Like you developing your educational skill set and constantly educating yourself will make you so much stronger. It's like working out or, developing any positive habit. The more you develop it and work at it on a regular basis, the more likely you are to be prepared when you need to be prepared. Whereas if you've not been metaphorically working that out and all of a sudden you go out and you put yourself out there because you lost your job, you might realize that you're a lot further behind than you didn't want to acknowledge.
Yeah, the first time I had asked for tuition money from the CEO, and he said no. His first question, though, before that was, why would I invest in you? What are you investing in yourself that would make me want to invest in you? Right? And so you can't just ask for money to go get educated. How are you educating yourself with the free courses, the library? What are you using in your network to connect with people and learn? Right? So you've got to invest in yourself to make the avenue for somebody else to want to invest in you. So you're constantly going to want some sort of group to give you money so that you can go buy and do things just from a business line. And they've got to see that you're investing in developing so that they can invest in. And it's never going to be a balanced, fair situation, right? It's always going to be one sided. And hopefully it takes turns on which one's one sided. But, just kind of be ready for that too, that it's never fair on the short, maybe equitable in some spaces, but really it's opportunistic and a combination of ingenuity and ambition, along with just having some humility and resilience, right? Kind of that reflect, learn, come back to it, right? And that's the value of education, but it's also a discipline. Every 6 months, year, whatever makes sense, come back to that table.
Let me ask the students one last question. Post in the comment section. What do you plan on doing to just maintain a constantly curious mindset and just a constantly wanting to learn mindset? Post in the comment section, whether you use Udemy or LinkedIn Learning or online courses. Like, what do you want to do to perpetually and continually and regularly educate yourself so then you are constantly staying updated on all the new developments in your industry? Post in the comment section. I'd love to learn more. So Dan, this has been a great workshop. How can students learn more about you? Are you okay with them connecting with you on LinkedIn? How can students stay in touch if they felt really connected to what you had to say in this workshop?
Yeah, the easiest thing is LinkedIn. You can click on there and connect and shoot me a message. I hit it as often as I can. Part of different organizations. I'm an IT guy, so I'm in Houston. So there's, CIO and SIM and tech exec and various other ones. And I connect with U of H and Lone Star and San Jack to help with their college programs as well. But yeah, any way I can connect, and maybe there might be a time that I reach out looking for a role.
I love it. Well, Dan, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Students, thank you all for your time. Have a wonderful rest of your day. See you, everybody.